Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, a channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and today is my overview of Daybreak. If you'd like to see my brief thoughts on the game, click the link on the screen or down below. Daybreak is a cooperative game co-designed by Matt Leacock, where players take on the roles of world powers who are trying to lower carbon emissions by adopting greener technologies and policies. Over the course of the game, the players will be playing cards into their tableaus. They will be chaining actions together in a type of engine building. Thematically, these are new technologies and initiatives to combat global warming. At the end of the round, all the dirty energy on the players' boards will create carbon, which must be absorbed by the world's oceans and trees. Any remaining carbon heats the Earth, represented here on this thermometer. Players will also be managing crisis cards that will occur every round, as new threats to the Earth's surface, as well as managing the world's increasing energy needs. The players will win the game if they can lower the carbon emissions to a safe enough level where all of the trees and oceans can absorb that carbon, and then some. Players will lose the game if the thermometer reaches the top, or if they take too many communities in crisis. To start, each player will take on the role of a major world power, whether that is a specific country like the US and China, or a broader concept like Europe or the majority world. The countries have a different starting hand of abilities, and they will start with vastly different amounts of dirty energy and emissions. So let's talk for a moment about dirty versus clean energy, which is a key concept in the game. Anything that's a brown token is going to create carbon, which you don't want. So you're seeking to either eliminate those in the cases of the agriculture and transit and those sort of tokens. In the case of energy, you're either trying to get a lot more green energy on the board, or you're trying to flip those tokens over to turn them from brown to green so they no longer have carbon. But you have to be careful, because if you eliminate the brown energy, then you're not making enough energy to meet the needs of your country. The player board for your country has 5 slots where you can play cards, a track which shows your energy needs and production, the brown energy adding power and carbon, the green just adding power, a track showing your emissions. Here you can see there are different kinds of emissions, like industry, agriculture, transit, and more. You also have space for what is called resilience, which represents societal, ecological, or infrastructure initiatives. You will be adding tokens to these areas over the course of the game. There is also an area for communities in crisis. More on that soon. Each player will also get a player aid telling them how to set up their world power. The game is played over 5 phases: global, local, emissions, crisis, and growth. In the global phase, players will add crises according to the amount shown on the thermometer. As the thermometer rises, the game will become more challenging, and you will have to draw more of these each round. You will turn one face up so you can plan for this problem, but the rest will remain hidden. We will come back to this in the crisis phase. Then, you will start a global project. You will draw the top 2 cards from the deck and pick one to add to the topmost slot. As you can see, you can have 4 projects at most. These represent projects all the players can use to work together and will stray throughout the game. These will change game to game depending on what you draw and what you keep. Many have to be activated. More on that soon. And then on to the local phase. This is the phase in which most of the decisions of the game and the majority of the gameplay is going to take place. Players can take their actions in any order that they want to, and most of the time you're going to be playing to your tableau without really consulting the other players. You can kind of do a little bit of a solo game here, although you should check in with your partner to see how you can do things more effectively, perhaps pass some cards in some cases, or work on one challenge or the other. If you think of it more thematically, it does make a lot more sense that each global power is autonomous, but are part of a larger global community and does need to work with other countries and other regions to make a difference. Firstly, you will draw 5 cards and add them to your hand, which has no hand limit. Then you will play a card in one of 3 ways. But before we get on to that, let's take a look at a card in a little more detail. Each card has a picture showing the concept, a QR code as discussed earlier, 1 or more tags or icons, an action you can take, and a requirement or limit. With that in mind, let us start a local project. That means playing this card into your tableau. Now, because you will be limited to 5 slots, you will often be covering up other projects. You must take into consideration the requirements, only playing a card into a stack if you have the tags needed. Now, this card is a local action that can be taken, which is the second thing we can do. To take a local action, look at a card in your tableau and check to see if it has a cost. If not, you may do it at any time, making sure to observe the limit here. Most cards like this are limited to once a turn. For instance, this action allows us to plant a tree on the board. This can be easy to forget, so use the carbon tokens to keep track of this. The other actions have a cost, usually to discard a card, allowing you to activate the ability. So if we look at these thermal panels, we must discard a card to gain a green energy per solar tag in this stack. So we count them up and add the energy to our board. How do we get those tags? Well, that is the third action, to support a project. To support a project, simply tuck a card behind a stack to make that action more impactful. Now there are over 100 cards in the game, many of which combo together, creating maybe what you might think of as an engine in gaming, but you can't get too hung up on a good engine or a good combo because you only have 5 slots and there's a lot of different things that you want to do. So you might do an action a couple of times to get a good result out of there, and then you'll cover those over to create more and more different combos and things. So you'll be playing a lot of cards to your tableau, but the nice thing is that every time you play a card into there, those tags will be powering up future actions, so you'll be getting more and more powerful as the game continues. There is also a player aid telling you the distribution of the tags, so you can better plan for how often you might see them. And then on to the emissions phase. In this phase, we'll count up all our carbon and face the consequences. Add up all the brown tokens on your board, using the scale to speed this task up. Then, put all the carbon you created at the top here in the recent emission space. Add up the trees, ocean, and fan tokens, and take the difference between the two and add that number to the thermometer. Depending on the number of players, this may cause a temperature band to be added as the Earth heats up. You will notice that there are negative effects here that will increase in severity as the temperature rises. Next is the crisis phase, where we will resolve our crisis cards and roll our planetary effects die. We begin by rolling the planetary die, which will increase these tracks which affect the globe, such as the loss of Arctic sea ice or melting permafrost. When they reach these spaces, you will resolve these negative effects. One important thing to note, however, is anytime that you resolve a crisis card or a planetary die roll, and that adds additional carbon, there's a chance that you will have to immediately add another temperature band, which could result in you being to a new level, causing you to draw additional crisis cards or make additional rolls right there, which in turn could do that again. Then you will resolve the crisis cards, which are negative events, one of which being known to us from the global phase. Often the effects are decreased by each country's resilience. You check for victory, advance the round marker, and increase energy demand depending on your global power, anywhere from 1 to 3. Anytime you can't meet energy needs, you will take a community and crisis token, adding it to your board. In fact, whenever you cannot meet a negative effects need, you will do this. The more you have, it will limit your hand size, and ultimately, if any player goes beyond their track, all players lose the game. And that's it. You play until you are producing less carbon than you can absorb, in which case you'll trigger the end of the game. You just have to then survive through the end of the round, and you've won the game. There is also a challenge deck, which you can take cards that change the game. Some make it easier, some make it harder, some add variety. And you can mix these to your taste. And that's Daybreak. If you'd like to see my brief thoughts on the game, click the link down below. But for now, I gotta roll.